Chad. I'm going to scoot on down to the other end of the couch so you can take my place on the hot cushion. Today, I'm going to discuss your fantasy football footprint and follow that up with some questions. Please keep in mind that I'm going to be very direct, to the point, and brutally honest. And the questions are not necessarily going to be easy. Is that okay?
I submit to your counsel.
Okay. Before we get into the meat of this potato, I would like to ask just a few things about you. So first thing is, what is the most hours you have ever put in one day watching game film?
Every single Sunday of a regular season with no bye weeks. So that would be starting at about 4:30, and I could be watching until 2 something. So maybe about 10 hours straight with minimal breaks and intermittently recording my recaps and things like that. So deep dives like that, 8, 10, 12 hours, but I definitely don't do live stuff, that when people plop themselves on the couch and it's 1 p.m. Eastern until midnight, I just do a different shift. It's a little later watching the condensed games.
That's pretty awesome. So about 12 hours, that's a lot of condensed game film. That's a lot.
Yes. A lot of places.
Okay, so the second question there is, whereabouts do you live in this world?
Used to live in D.C., grew up in California, and now I'm in Florida, and living there after I got out of the military in D.C. I've been here for probably 4 years total. Took a year off. We traveled around the country. I called it the UTH Tour. Got to meet a lot of subscribers and listeners along the way. That was a lot of fun. We got rid of all of our belongings after checking out San Diego for a year, and then we ventured our way back to Florida, got up to Dakotas as well as Minnesota, and just zigzagged all over the place. It was a ton of fun. And again, getting to meet, have lunches with folks that, you know the name from emailing them or Twitter or whatever over the years. Definitely something would like to do again.
Yeah, it was definitely fun meeting and having dinner with Katie, or lunch/dinner. It was a long event. Katie Flower is a pretty amazing chef.
European dinner.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously you've been playing fantasy football, and Devi in particular, for a long time. What is your favorite analysis metric that's been added in the past 5 years?
Let's see. I would say one that I've used a lot more, and now it's pretty trendy, I guess, but 5 years ago or so, because I have my own projection model and I track a lot of things for college prospects, and pretty much I say 2 to 3 years in, it gets them into the NFL, and then obviously that fades away over time, and you really start leaning on what they've done NFL wise a lot more. But one thing that I've started utilizing, and it's more heavily weighted through testing, is, well, I'll say this, is that breakout age for me. I know it's like, man, you mentioned that, and all of a sudden you get like 19 hearts on Twitter or whatever, and people just gravitate. But it's like Pavlovian dog. That I feel like it's misconstrued because, number one, I say you did what, when, and how much. And a lot of people say, it's a static, well, once you reach a dominator rating of 25% or 30%, and it's a static thing. It's like, well, when did you get there? Well, I have a sliding scale through a lot of the research. I spent like pretty much every off season, I do like one giant massive project. And one year it was just about age, and start looking at this stuff. And I'm old school, I don't know how to like scrape, data. So I collect it all, for all the prospects I have in there manually, and it's a lot of fun. And I just kind of like doing it. But yeah, 18.5, what did you do at 18.5? Your scale shouldn't be the same as 20.5. And, a breakout as at that age, or a freshman would be different than a couple years in, to your college career. So that sort of sliding scale, and the fact that I always smirk when I see people that pretty much value touchdown and yards the same, because it's not 50-50. Every single data test and adjustment I make annually they are not equal. And I find it interesting that everyone just goes 50-50 because it's the easiest thing to do in your head, or, that would make sense, I guess, that just, it's percent of yards and it's percent of touchdowns for the team. And then boom, there you go. And so I think there's a lot more nuance to that. And I also think that raw age, that if you're 21.5, if you're 22.2, all these things kind of factor into the big giant cauldron formula that I use for prospects. And that's probably been the biggest thing that I've enjoyed doing. I think it's the most beneficial adjustment and addition over the last 3 to 5 years for me.
Well, that's pretty awesome. Okay, so moving on to the next thing, because I think you've pretty much nailed like 8 metrics rolled into one on that one. Don't have much to add. I'm a beer guy, and I'm a nationally ranked beer judge. So when I'm doing beer judging like today, this is why I'm remote here. What is something that you look for in a beer or a beverage that makes you consider that great?
Oh no. Oh well. I'll just tell you. My dad is a national award-winning brewer, homebrew.
Oh, is he now?
Yeah, I think there was a cross section when I was like a teenager. There was actually maybe a low % chance that he actually thought about maybe being a part of a brewery or something like that. But yeah, he's got so many ribbons, and I mean, he was the one in the 1990s, like converting his fridge in the garage, having a couple taps on there, and would also, on Saturdays you'd smell, what would he be doing? The hops and he would actually be doing the brew part, the main brew part. I am, as you can tell, Chad is not following in his footsteps. So I actually am trying to get more into beer. I know almost nothing. I do know I don't like the hoppy ones. But when I go, we were in Colorado for a month traveling around, and they do have a lot of breweries. And Katie was there. I got some help from some UTH listeners who know what they're doing. And I always get their advice, on what should I get. I'm generally a fan of really thick, hearty, dark, kind of ones. Like I like Guinness, I like Jaeger. I like things like that. So for beer, I've never really tried, Coors Light, Bud Light, like some of the regular ones, Sam Adams, like the ones that you can just typically get at almost any store. So I'm unfamiliar with that. And self-admission, because again, I'm brutally honest to my own fault and getting made fun of, but I'm more of a girly drink type person. That it needs to kind of taste good. I don't understand some of the ones where it's like, this tastes horrible. How do you drink this? And how is this your go-to? But some people like it. I don't know if it's, you kind of got used to it for 5-10 years and that's just kind of what you do. But so I like more of the mixed drinks. I always get made fun of because I'll be like, hey, yeah, you get to some place, I'll have a mudslide. Be like, they don't have blenders. You don't understand how to order. You're a dope. So I will just, I have no awareness because I wasn't a heavy drinker, or I wasn't familiar with it pretty much until my maybe later 20s. Like I wasn't a big, in high school, I was kind of dabbling at parties, or in college, I kind of got some, just kind of learned the ropes, if you will. So I didn't have much of that. So I'm still, now 40 and learning. And so the mixed drinks, the frozen drinks, those things are a lot more of my appeal, just because, I think they're nice. I enjoy, alcohol from time to time, but, I'm very much an acquired taste in terms of my developing palate.
Well, for me, when I'm judging beers, carbonation is like one of the biggest keys. So when you're judging the beer, the carbonation level has to be right for that style, that particular beer that you're trying to enjoy or trying to judge. You should ask your dad if he has ever entered the Bluebonnet Brew-Off competition, the largest single-site homebrew competition in the world.
Wow, I will. Bluebonnet. I remember he had to mail it back then. A major one that was in Colorado, that he actually had to mail it off and track the results and all that stuff. I mean, obviously it was a far different environment than the technology and a lot of the stuff we have going today, for sure. How'd you learn all that? Like, when did you get involved in, I don't know if I'm allowed to ask questions, but when did you get involved with yourself and, or, judging and being a big part of groups like that?
So I'm typically a social person. So once I started brewing beer, I got involved in beer clubs and then involved in the Bluebonnet, which is my now 35th annual.
Wow.
And yeah, it's been going on for a long time. But I started brewing beer literally when my wife started to make bread from scratch at home. And I said, well, that's like just the dry version of beer. So if you can make bread, I got to be able to make beer. And I got into it, read a book, and started down that path. And like anything, I go overboard on something when I do it. And so I learned all the traits and the things I needed to learn, got going. And my wife brewed with me, and it was a lot of fun. And I turned to her and I said, did you have a lot of fun? And she said, this is your hobby. I did not have a lot of fun.
I have to ask you one thing, because one image I remember was There's various times, because when my dad would bottle, when I was a kid, that he would actually get the green and brown bottles, not clear ones, and he would get those and he would have them in the bathtub, sanitizing them, but also getting the labels off. He made his own labels and stuff like that. But I just remember, like, I would just walk in and be like, oh, there's 74 bottles that are in the bathtub, just sitting and soaking. So there's these moments where you're like, I guess it becomes normal for me, but I think the average person would be like, what is happening? Like, that's not a rubber ducky. That's not a common image for people unless you're in an environment, in a household with a home brewer. I mean, do you have any like this is normal to me, but if someone not in my, range of thinking and environment, they come into your house and be like, what is this? What are you doing? Is there is the garage just a complete,
Kyle, have you installed the taps on the new wall of your new place? That was a nice feature of his last place. The taps coming out of the wall in the den.
A tap wall. Okay.
Oh, yes, I just moved, but at my old place, I had literally run basically vented lines through the wall from the garage into the den. So you would hang your keys on the little key hooks, or your coat, or your whatever you've got. So you walk in the door, you hang everything there, and then you could just grab a pint and pull down the tap handle and have a beer.
You create your own brewery and bar, basically. That's in that road.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Level 6 enabled.
Brewers are typically pretty creative. But, well, that was a fun diversion. But I'm going to ask my fifth and final introduction question. What is your favorite part about Madden Fantasy Football?
You mean the game?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I had a small window. I grew up on Tecmo Bowl, the original one, not the Super Bowl version or whatever. So that was really my jam in Nintendo. And then when you got to, I think it was Joe Montana, like 94, Joe Montana football for Sega Genesis. But then when I got to, I think it was PlayStation, the original, I'm pretty old school, that it was the 04 and really the 05 game that when it got to 6 and 7, I really, and 8, I believe, I tried out NCAA, the version, and I didn't really like it. So I pretty much stuck for like 5 years playing franchise mode on 05 Madden. And that was where it was Michael Vick, but it was in that zone where they franchise mode was relatively new, I believe. And you could, I really got into you can draft, you can develop players. They have those little skill competitions that you could improve players. But I would even, I enjoyed playing the game, but more than anything, and I guess this was like a sign to come for running dynasty teams and things like that, where I actually enjoyed like simulating the games and getting to the off season, or making trades and developing my team and looking at it from the multi-year, actually building a dynasty sort of approach. So that's what I ended up learning and enjoying more for those games. But I never really got into it when you got into new generations of platforms. And then obviously, the years and years since 05 or so with Madden. So I like the game, but I am not one that I dove all the way into the new platforms, the new ways to. I think I tried out Madden one time on computer and I just really didn't get it. So I'm kind of very simple in terms of what I want my controller to be and how to run the game. I more enjoy figuring out the game and how to play it to its highest extent, as opposed to give me the most complicated and immersive game experience ever. I'm more of that type.
That's pretty cool. When I play Madden Fantasy Football, I like the simulation mode as well, because then I can pay more attention to the stats as opposed to the actual controlling. Okay, so now it's time for my hard-hitting analysis and drama-laden questions. Are you ready?
I will prep myself accordingly.
Okay. We recently met with Russ Fisher for one of our coming soon inebriated storytelling podcasts, the FF Stories. Russ talked about CG, Disney, and musical greatness within, which made me think about bands that I really like. I enjoy listening to AC/DC, especially when I'm watching CD Lamb. I am pretty eclectic, so I have bands like CCR and REM in my repertoire. You may also hear me listening to a little INXS. Back in the day, maybe I would pop on a little guilty pleasure with TLC or LFO. If I'm trying to chill out a bit more, maybe I'll throw on a little OAR or DMB. What is the health measurement tool involving body mass to get an understanding of a person's health?
That's my favorite part of the whole show. Body mass. So am I talking musically or am I talking about BMI? What are we doing?
The question was, what is a health measurement tool involving body mass to get an understanding of a person's health?
BMI, I guess. Is this a test? This is.
I'm sorry, the answer would be a scale. That would be the health measurement tool.
Scale.
BMI,
A scale.
yes, BMI would be a value chart. But yes, you kind of fell for the multiple acronyms.
I was getting ready to try to talk music with you because you started name dropping, and I thought you were just supposed to talk about older popular bands to keep it evergreen. But I'm prepping myself because I really am not a big music person of all these bands and I have 3 of their albums and stuff like that. But I was prepping by saying that I've gotten more into classic rock and I have really enjoyed that. But yes, I'm 0 for 1 on knowing scale.
Well, don't worry. A half a point out of these 4 questions is typically meaning you'll be pretty high. So.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay, Chad. I know you're not a guy who usually toots his own horn, as you're a very nice guy. So for a long time, you were in your career, and that was your job, to toot your own horn. This is your first call, or reveille, if you prefer, on the Dynasty Self Help Podcast. But you've been long-running under the Helmet podcast. While Russ Fisher's mind may have been frozen on more current Disney films, not allowing him to let it go, as spring and summer approach, we may want you to be thinking about going under the sea. Being under the helmet, such wondering things surround you, those helmets do. As you know, but take it from me, the New York Jets is sad because they ain't in the bowl. On the offseason, we go. Fantasy players get the urge to play. We got the spirit. You got to hear it. Under the Sea. What year did the Army adopt The Army Goes Rolling On as their official song?
Oh my God, that was a long way to go. Well done.
Jeremy helped me with these today. We wrote them together, so first time reading that one.
They graded on the curve. The one time I had to learn history, thank goodness. So I barely passed, better than the dumbest guy in line. So I would. I'm going to guess it was later than people think. I'm going to go with 1810 as people yell.
Ooh, okay, so no, it was first written in 1908, but it was very slowly adopted. Was a march song for many years, and then 1956, because it was originally the caissons go rolling on.
Horrible.
And, yeah, then it shifted over.
You fired.
All right. So
those were all Under the Sea lyrics, by the way.
Yeah, that was Under the Sea. Okay. Question number 3. Protecting yourself under the helmet may prevent you from getting your bell rung, though you'll be ringing a celebratory bell soon here as the UTH episode 500 approaches. While no fantasy player has reached the 500-point threshold during a season, 3 have come close to within 50 points, including Marshall Faulk in 2000, Christian McCaffrey in 2019, and the closest flash of light coming lightning in a bottle, LaDainian Tomlinson in 2006 with 481.1. What is the scientific notation of the number 500?
I think it's C. Yeah.
C?
I don't know.
Okay, that would be. I see where you're going. No, this would be 5 times 10 to the second power. Would be.
Oh, I thought we were doing Roman numerals. As you can tell, this looks like the SATs. I need this written down. At the last second, you're just like, I love pie and candy, and LaDainian Tomlinson's really good. What's the scientific notation for it? Like, twists and turns. This is a tough test.
So yes, this little bit really originated from a Peter Gent league that I was playing in, and we called it direct indirection. And the whole point was to, get you leaning towards one thing that you were totally not thinking about the actual question that was coming up. And it usually is fairly effective.
Thank you. Yeah, you really tempered down the laughter because that one was egregious.
All right. Well, question number 4. In Mike McCarthy, white lie interview-esque fashion, you watch every play from every game during the season to report back concise observation of players. I'm sure that you get an excuse of pleasure in watching any football team that is not the New York Jets. I'm sure that you saw with Dak coming back, the boys again reign supreme. Tom Brady has won, or was unable to win, yet another Super Bowl outside of New England, where most of the film is directed towards the sideline rather than the players themselves. What is the average PSI of the footballs that Tom Brady deflated during the 2014 AFC Championship game against the Indianapolis Colts?
Average 14.1.
That's pretty close. It was 11.3 was what he got. I think 14.1 may have actually been within legal limits, but 12.5 is the low end, I believe.
Okay. I got 0.1 points.
You tell me.
I'm not 100% sure on that one.
We are giving you a green award. What does that mean? We don't know.
We are unsure. All right. Well, I'm going to say thank you for your time, and I appreciate your candid and truthful answers and my insightful and hard-hitting analysis.